welcome to the press conference.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I'm amazed that there is one.
You know, I think, you know what, Maurice? You're my favorite voice actor, not John DiMaggio.
Thank you.
You know, John
Silo
Road, right?
He pretends to be a voice actor. No, he's the greatest. I love John.
Oh, you guys are great. Well, the panel was a lot of fun. We're really sad that Futurama is zombified again and may or may not rise from the dead.
Yeah.
But speaking of Futurama and Kif, who is one of the main voices you do on there, it's a lot quieter and a little different than a lot of the voices that you're known for, the stronger voices. How did you come up with that one?
Kif was, episode 3 or 4, I can't remember, as we were in the order of recording. And Matt was, he was very much, he was very hands-on as we built the show. He knew exactly what he wanted in terms of who the character was, but we wasn't sure about his sound. His sort of tagline for Kif was, he's Mr. Spock if Mr. Spock had to deal with William Shatner. Okay. So we tried a few things. I tried going very, so it seems the rest of the crew doesn't share your passion for velour, something very deep and in the Nimoy range. It sounded too much like the brain. And we just, we realized that he sounded tired, we had the size. So I thought, there's this like this. I played a character in a very short-lived show called The Adventures of Hyperman, where the chief of that was very much, the guy just said to me, Truman Capote. He's Truman Capote. So I thought, that sort of, the whole voice quality of Truman Capote had a certain sighing sound to it. And so I decided that he would sound like Truman Capote, and he said, well, too effeminate. I also wanted to have some of the sarcasm and pissiness of John Lovitz. So it went from, instead of being, sir, it seems the rest of the crew doesn't share your passion for velour, to, if Lovitz had done it, he'd gone, well, sir, it seems the rest of the crew doesn't share your passion for velour. So it became, sir, the rest of the crew doesn't share your passion for velour. Ugh. That's where Kif came from. We kind of threw John Lovitz and Truman Capote into the blender, and out came Kif. Long way of talking about my process. An actor talks about acting.
Yay.
Any other questions?
I have more, but I just didn't want to. I'm just going to. Okay, so now that Futurama is whatever it's doing, we're hoping coming back one day. What are you working on right now, or what are your future
my
projects?
Self-esteem.
Aww, you are my favorite.
Thank you. Currently I'm working on a project for Disney called The 7D.
Oh, yeah.
Which are the 7 dwarves about 20 years before they met Snow White. So they all have all their hair, and their hair is, its original colors, nobody's gray. And, they, of course, needing to fixate on a beautiful female figure, they live to serve Queen Delightful, who is the queen of the kingdom. And they've done a very different take with them, though. We've gone away from the movies, from the Snow White movie, and it looks almost like a 1960s Jay Ward cartoon, kind of Bullwinkle, George of the Jungle, kind of
I've seen
very
some of
simple
pictures,
drawings.
Yeah.
And each one's voice is very distinct. Kevin Michael Richardson is happy, and he just blazes so happy, and then when Kevin is, full of joy, I mean, the room, bursts with it. And Bill Farmer is Doc, Billy West is bashful, and Billy uses his upper range. He's like so adorable that even though he's a 62-year-old man, you just want to pinch his cheeks. And I brought to Grumpy, I sort of threw, again, I do a lot of my voices by throwing 2 things into the hopper and coming up with a unique voice. There's a little George Costanza in him, and there's a little bit of my friend Kenny Lombino. I have a best friend named Kenny Lombino. He's a Brooklyn by way of New Jersey guy, and he's an investment guy, but he came up through the streets, and so Kenny is very much like this guy. And then George Costanza's this. I don't know, Jerry. People think I'm smart, but I'm not smart. So then Grumpy is kind of this guy right here. All right, okay, fine. I'm grumpy and I accept it, but I got to help Queen Delightful anyway. So, he does a lot of like, oh, this guy again. He gets all the sarcastic one line. It's a thrill to be in a show where I'm actually the guy getting the good lines, because I'm usually the setup guy. Even in Pinky and the Brain, Rob Paulson got all the great lines while I gave him the, are you pondering what I'm pondering? And then he got to say the funny thing, So Brain's humor had to come from, his being put upon and having to deal with this knucklehead named Pinky, who may have been the genius. And the Brain may have been the one who was insane.
But that was a lot of fun with you and Rob and doing the whole, Pinky and the Brain. And Brain did get his funny lines in there.
He did. When Brain had to say the great lines like if I could reach you, I would hurt you. Or, yes, that is a pain that is going to linger. It must be inordinately taxing to be such a boob, Pinky. Little sarcastic things like that. I love playing the sarcastic note, because I'm really actually very kind in real life.
Yeah, okay. But now I'm sorry. You go ahead.
I just wanted to know, do you have a favorite episode that you did of Pinky and the Brain?
Well, it's kind of a tie. Bubba Bob Brain was.
I love that one.
That was the one where I think we found the stride with the characters. We'd done 2 or 3 episodes before it, but we recorded Bubba Bob, and 2 things happened there. The voices changed. Rob went to a little bit more of a he got out of the bucktooth thing that he was doing in the first few episodes, and really just found that kind of almost ladylike voice that he was doing. And Brain stopped being a straight Orson Welles impression and became a little bit more. There's a little Vincent Price-ish kind of highs in there, and their relationship became the annoyance became stronger, and we realized that's the note. I realized that's the note I have to play with Pinky, and yet I still have to have affection for Pinky. So Bubba Bob and the Emmy-winning primetime Emmy-winning Christmas special, which there was a big falderall because that special was the first time that a daytime cartoon had come into primetime and beaten The Simpsons. So so like whoa. So yeah, those are my 2 faves. I've never been able to quite choose between them.
So what about You Said a Mouthful? How many takes did that take?
Yeah, that was interesting. We Rob and I are doing we're doing an evening with Pinky and the Brain at the Plaza Theater, and for our finale we are actually going to do a staged reading of You Said a Mouthful, the cast from the audience.
That's great.
So Saturday night at the Plaza. So You Said a Mouthful was a fun and funny and challenging episode to do. It's the only episode where I ever left the booth, walked into the control room, and slugged the writer in the arm. The way you hit your little brother, or it's like a Lucy Linus kind of slug. I just punched him in the arm for writing something so difficult. Went back and sat down and went, I feel better now. Rubber baby buggy bumpers, rubber baby bumpers. So that was
a good episode.
It was fun.
So you're originally from Canada, right?
Toronto, yes.
Sweet. How do you find the South, and how do you find the?
I have a GPS.
Oh, good.
Makes it very easy.
That's easy. I mean, the whole experience for you of coming down here and
Well, I've only been here a day. I mean, I got in late last night. I got in around 7, and I went to Rob Paulson and I. Pinky and the Brain went out for dinner. We went to Morton's. So there was definitely a flavor of Southern hospitality, but then again, Morton's. No matter if you're beamed into a Morton's, if you're Captain Kirk and you're beamed to name Morton's on Earth, you don't know what city you're in because every Morton's looks the same. I don't understand where they get all this wood paneling from. And the steaks were all delicious and fantastic. But we certainly, people have been very nice here.
Is this your first Dragon Con?
This is my first Dragon Con and my first time in Atlanta.
Awesome.
So,
go to the Coke Factory.
And I'm not even going to complain about the humidity because Toronto, being on Lake Ontario, is just as humid as this in August. So I'm fully used to it. Haven't lived in it in 33 years, but I'm loving Atlanta. I'm having a great time here.
Welcome to
People are
Dragon
so
Con.
nice.
Here,
Thank
yeah.
you.
Welcome.
And the Dragon Con people, I have to say, there's a very, very real difference between the Comic Con vibe and the Dragon Con vibe.
Yes,
Yeah.
huge.
Comic Con, and it is absolutely necessary that it be there because it's Comic Can Film Festival. It's
A
like,
launching pad.
it's there to sell projects. This is all about fan love. This is completely fan driven. Comic Con is very studio driven and publisher driven, but this is just the fans just expressing themselves and truly paying tribute to the genres, and it's wonderful to see. So I'm really enjoying my time here. very much so.
It's been referred to as like Con Mardi Gras, basically.
Yeah,
That's what it is,
that's
which is
a
why
good name for it. Yeah.
It's a great thing.
And the cheers that went up in the lobby at 1 a.m. as people were still partying,
Wait till
Yep.
wafting their way up to
Tonight,
my
tomorrow
room.
night.
Tonight, it will go all
24/7
night.
tonight and tomorrow night.
Yeah,
Wow.
it's 24-hour party.
It's it's definitely a party
Well,
con.
It's great.
Stop by the Pulse Bar.
Keeps going.
So.
Do you guys have more questions? I can keep asking questions.
So, what, kind of continuing the vein of talking about the South, being from Toronto, what is your impression of the South as far as when you think about geeks and nerdy people? Do you think about the South at all, the Southern United States?
Well, Toronto's in southern Ontario, so I'm sort of from the South myself, and I've lived in LA for 33 years, so I think I've been somewhat Californiaized. But the South isn't the first thing that comes to my mind, honestly, when I think about fandom and nerddom and geekdom and all the other doms. But and I did notice, we just did a Futurama panel, and I did notice that a goodly portion of the questioners didn't have any kind of Southern accent or anything like that. I don't know if the accent's fizzling out down here or not. So it seems like there's a lot of people imported coming from all over, and it speaks well of Atlanta that this is the town that people come to be their purest, to express themselves in that very pure way that Dragon Con does. So it's not the first thing I think of, and yet I really am liking the vibe here very much. Yes.
Have you done games?
I've only been on a handful of games.
Okay.
Games beat up my throat, and
Right.
unlike a lot of voice actors who seem to be invulnerable down there, I seem to get a lot of cases of laryngitis, etc., by having to do repeated lines over and over again, and so I really kind of limit myself, and I'm very blessed and fortunate that I can afford to. I can turn down a lot of the work because I've gotten to be on shows like Futurama or be the voice of Lexus. And so I'm very selective. So I do things that I think my son will think are cool, like Mr. Freeze in Arkham City, and I General Varasuthra in the new, well, it's not new anymore. It was new then, and I haven't played it yet. Goodness, I'm blanking. The New Republic, or the Old Republic, sorry.
Yeah.
The Old Republic game, which, a phone book, literally a phone book of script for every character. It was unbelievable, but I think it's the world's largest online gaming right now. You can join up. So I play this Mon Calamari general named Varasuthra, and the whole thing takes place 3,000 years before the continuity of Star Wars. So I wasn't locked into it. It's a trap. So I decided it sounded more like Gene Hackman, greatest criminal mind of our time. So I gave him sort of a Gene Hackman kind of thing. But that was a lot of days of work on that.
How many days does it usually go when they give you a phone book worth of lines?
They break it up. They actually do. But I mean, I've never done a war game where I have to do a lot of dying, falling, being blown up, being shot, that sort of thing. I've never done one of those. I guess they don't think of me for those things, but just as well, because my throat gets beat up very easily. I don't know why. It's a very sensitive instrument. I feel like I'm just coming out of a cold, and I can feel I'm a little raspy right now. So forgive if the voices are not dead on.
But some of them it works for, you know what I'm saying?
Certainly.
It helps out.
Certainly, it works for the Lexus voice, the 2013 Lexus GS. There's no going back.
I'm going to fall on an age-old generic question, but it's obviously for our fans, is what really drove you or pulled you into voice acting? Because you're great, you're amazing, and what did you know right off?
It was a weird
And
kind
what was
of...
your first job as a voice actor? 'Cause
Thank
that's
you.
Exactly, yeah. So
All
if you
right.
could
Well,
pull that together.
it was a weird sort of gravity that pulled me, and it really was a pull. I never thought of myself primarily as a voice actor. I was going for the big stand-up comedy enchilada. I started in 1977 at a club called Yuck Yucks in Toronto, which also birthed Howie Mandel and Jim Carrey and Norm Macdonald. I was chasing after that, and I'd done a couple of voiceovers up in Toronto for a company called Nelvana Films. I did, they were annual specials. One was Easter Fever with Garrett Morris from Saturday Night Live, who's now on Two Broke Girls. And I played Steve Martin and Don Rickles as animals. So it was Steve Martin and Don Rattles, and it was a roast of the Easter Bunny. That was the very first thing I ever did. The very first time I ever heard my voice come out of a cartoon character. I was 19, and it was magic to hear that and to see that and go, wow, that's me talking. It's like, I'm Fred Flintstone now, because it was astounding. I remember seeing Alan Reed on an episode of the Beverly Hillbillies, when I was a kid, and going, he sounds like somebody. Who does he sound like? And I realized that, halfway through the episode, that's the man who plays Fred Flintstone. So, that's when I first realized it was a human being and behind those moving drawings. So that was my first job. Then I came down here, stand-up comedy, and a voiceover agent from the William Morris Agency, who I was with for my personal appearance stuff, was in the audience. Her name was Nina Nissenholtz, and she said, with all these impressions you do, you'd be a natural for voiceovers. And I was like, well, I was always told that was a closed shop. My friend is Frank Welker, and he told me, he's going to try to get me started. And Frank really did talk me up around town for about a year before I got my first job. But Nina also started sending me out right about that time, and it took me a year to get my first job. But my first job was Inspector Gadget. I did one episode of The Littles and one episode of something called Wolf Rock TV, just as a guest star thing, so they could test me and see how I was. And then they ended up putting me on Inspector Gadget, and then right after that, Real Ghostbusters. So I would.
Can we hear a moment from Inspector Gadget?
Well, I was the chief.
The chief, yeah.
So I would always just say things like, "Here's your assignment, Gadget," and then as at the end when he after he read it, he'd go, "Thanks, Chief," and Gadget would hand me back my thing that would explode. "This message will self-destruct in 3 seconds. Thanks, Chief," and he'd throw it in the garbage can or whatever that I was hiding in, and then I'd go, "Gadget!" That was it. That was the extent of the chief. But I'd also play henchman number 2. And he was always this guy right here, He was Dr. Claw's going to be really pissed off with us. So Frank Welker would play the other guy, And that was my entree into cartoons. And it just kept coming, one of those things. It's one of those things where it's as close to a meritocracy in show business as you can get. If you're good, the work will keep coming, because they love to work with people who can do the skill of coming up with multiple characters, in animation at least, and being able to give, so they don't have to hire 5 actors. They can hire you and have you play 5 parts in the episode. So they love that simply. So if you can deliver those goods, the work comes. So it was a steady thing, and as I said, I got sort of pulled into it rather than taking a bunch of voiceover workshops, and that sort of thing. I've got a lot of my friends who did study with Nancy Cartwright, studied with Dawes Butler, Huckleberry Hound and Yogi Bear. I never took a lesson. I don't know why. I just seem to have a knack for doing this.
So now I know that you base the brain in part on Orson Welles, and I know I've heard the story of the fact that you used to do that warm-up exercise. Where did that come from? The actual warm-up, why did you start doing that in particular?
We were on the job from hell. We were dubbing a French puppet show, life-size puppets, people inside costumes, into English. And it was the longest day ever. It started at 9 and ended at 9 on New Year's Eve. I was supposed to do the job. I was supposed to go in there and do the job for 2 hours and then make a 1 o'clock flight that would get me to New York. I was going to be, Howie Mandel actually was hosting an MTV party, and I was supposed to go party with the MTVers, back when it was brand new. And the thing just took for bloody ever. And I was so depressed at the end of the night that Phil Proctor from the Fireside Theater, who was, making college students laugh when I was still in junior high school, he said, "I've got this, come here, this will cheer you up." And he gave me a cassette with Orson Welles doing this frozen peas commercial. So my consolation prize was I didn't get to party with Sting, you know, and Howie Mandel, but I did get to have a career because this tape that he gave me had this gold on it. Orson Welles being himself, being a curmudgeon, and yet the more you listen to it, you go, he's right. These guys don't know what they're talking about. So, you know, so I listened to it backwards and forwards, and I couldn't get enough of it. And then eventually I began to ape it because that's what I do. And it made its way into my bag of tricks. And whenever there was downtime, you know, if they were, you know, listening to the playbacks, I'd just sit there and just try it out on mic, and because I'd wear headphones. And get me a jury and show me how you can say in July, and I'll go down on you. You know, it was hysterical. So it amused me to do it, and I wanted to see how close to the timing I could do it. Because when you get somebody being themselves, that's the best way to grab them as an impression. You know, you can get all facets of them from there on up. So that's how that happened.
I've never heard that story before, so that's fantastic.
Hello, what a nice camera. Yes.
I'm gonna keep asking you questions. I just don't want to, you know, take all the time and everything. So.
No.
Well, okay. So going back to
The lady from Pravda, you have a question?
So going back to Futurama, you do lots and lots of voices. Which ones did you start out with, and which ones developed like later on, and how did that all work out? Because you do. I mean, how many is it? Do you even know?
I don't know. I don't
Okay.
know. There was a couple of years ago when we were making the direct-to-DVD movies, there was a website that somebody came out with where they had actually counted and listed all of our characters. I think I was at 72 characters, counting everything. All one-offs, all recurrings, all regulars. But Tress MacNeille had me beat. She had 75.
Wow. What about Billy? Does he also does?
Billy
a lot
was
too,
in the
right?
50s, but
Okay.
he does the heavy lifting on the show though, because he's
right.
Fry, he's Zoidberg, and the Professor.
Yeah.
So he's three people in the break room
Yeah.
at Planet Express, and then you throw on Zap, who's in like every fifth episode or so, and Smitty, and you know, I mean, he's got so many characters in there, but he's got so many. He topped out with 50 something.
So you're Calculon, and you've got the you know, the mafia guys. So which ones?
I got clamps. I have the country hyper chicken loyal, and you know, who else is in there? Oh, Heaton is involved. You know, Lure. So you know, there's a lot of characters there.
Which one do you enjoy the most? Do you identify with any of them?
Oh, I identify with most
All
of
of
them.
them?
Okay.
Yeah,
You
not
can
all.
tell.
I mean, there's certain, you know, because any actor is only giving you parts of himself.
Mm-hmm.
There's a great line in a movie called My Favorite Year that my friend Dennis Palumbo wrote, and you know, at the end of I'm going to give away the end of the film. Peter O'Toole, who plays this Errol Flynn character, tells Benji Stone, his handler from the King Kaiser show, which is really the Sid Caesar show. He chickens out. He realizes it's live, and he chickens out. And he's hiding and he's drinking, and he goes, "I'm scared, Stone." And he goes, "You don't get to be scared." He says, You are that damn hero, and you couldn't play that hero if you didn't have him somewhere inside of you." And O'Toole goes on to save the day in the film. But every actor gives you what's inside of them. So every character I play is a piece of me. So, you know, even though they may draw a lure, with the lure I voice and the lure I play is my own angst about being in a midlife crisis. Kiff is my own shyness and my own sense that I can't quite, maybe I'll never quite rise to Zap Brannigan's rank, but I certainly hope I can one day save Amy with a bugalo, you know, or something like that, you know. Morbo is very different from Laura.
You really want to eat kittens and.
They give me gas. You know, there are foods that give me gas, so I relate to that. Everybody's a little piece of me, so yeah.
That's great.
I won't tell you where clams comes from. It's my parenting skills.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Let's go back again to the Animaniacs stuff. Besides the brain, what other characters? Because I feel like I'm forgetting a few. Did you do other characters on there?
Well, I was the Ray Liotta-based pigeon Squit in,
Right,
in
yes,
the Good
okay,
Feathers.
yes.
As far back as I can remember, I always wanted to be a good feather. if you were a good feather, you had it all. Martin Scorsese apparently loved the good feathers. He and Spielberg were friends, of course. And when that was on, Spielberg would just send him tapes of the Goodfeathers episode. As they came out, he dug them. We were paying tribute to him.
And that was they had the West Side Pigeon.
West Side
thing, which
Pigeons,
was great.
right.
You did
A
the
lot
heavy
of
lifting
singing.
for a lot of that.
I had what?
You did a lot of the heavy lifting for that one.
I had a lot of singing in that
Yeah,
episode, but they really worked with me. I'm not a natural singer, so Steve and Julie Bernstein and Rich Stone, God rest his soul, really walked me through it, and we rehearsed for a couple of days, and I worked with the tapes. And the way I practice singing, you've got to give me something that has only melody on it. If you give me anything with harmony, I'm lost, because I start singing up in the harmony and then back down to the melody, and I'm not a natural musician like my son, but I did that. I played. One of my favorites was playing Michelangelo in Hooked on a Ceiling.
Right, that was a great one.
Because it was a nice little twist. It was Michelangelo, but we didn't go Charlton Heston. We went Kirk Douglas, and they knew it was going to be Kirk Douglas. So I was like, "What have you done to my ceiling? My beautiful ceiling!" It was like. So that was fun.
That was a great episode.
Miles Standish as Richard Burden. Oh, my PT pajamas, I loved him so. All the people that the Animaniacs annoy, I got to play a bunch of times.
Well, and you did do the song. One of my favorite Animaniacs songs is actually "The Really Great Dictator," which was mostly you. Rob was just he had some of the chorus, but you were singing the song. Do you remember that one?
No, I don't. Which one was that?
The one with, what is it, like Noriega, Genghis Khan, Saddam Hussein, and Me the Brain. I know most of the lyrics, actually, probably.
Oh my gosh, I've forgotten that song completely.
It's a great
I spend
song,
my
and you
days
sing it
trying to
very
memorize.
well,
I spend my days. Which one is it?
It's called "The Really Great Dictator."
Really Great
It's
Dictator.
on YouTube.
I've got to trace that one down. I'm still trying to memorize the parts of the brain. Hippocampus, neural node, brainstem. Paulson can rattle off the countries of the world like that.
Yeah, but no one's ever asked you to do The Great Dictator? Because I'm going to come on Saturday night and I'm going to ask you to do The Great Dictator.
Oh, great. Okay. I'll have it on. I'll put it on my iPod.
I need to pull up YouTube now.
It's a really fun one. I think you did a really good job with that
thank you.
one.
Thank you very kindly. Got to go back for it now. I mean, sometimes I have to remember this stuff was 20 years ago. 20 years ago.
This year.
I had jet black hair 20 years ago. And a 36-inch waist.
Now that it's back on, do you see a lot of resurgence? The younger generation, refining the Animaniacs and.
Well, the Hub has just started running the original Animaniacs
Right.
again, and they've got a big viewership. I've got another show on the Hub called Transformers Rescue Bots, where I play the patriarch of a family of first responders, and the Transformers that come pick our vehicles as their. So there's a police car character and a fire truck character and a tractor character, who's one of the sons is a civil engineer, and a helicopter. And so anyway, the Hub. Putting these on is giving it a resurgence, but it's yet to see quite the impact. I'm not quite sure where it is yet. There's a big, this being Labor Day weekend, there's a big Animaniacs Pinky and the Brain marathon. So, yeah.
Well, my hairdresser's son just says, "Oh my God!" So there you go.
Yeah, I think the cartoons are timeless. We did a lot of timely references, and there's maybe a few too many Clinton jokes in there, but with Clinton being back in the news, Obama keeps pulling him back into the spotlight. Come on, he's hip again. So, other than that, I think the show has legs, and it could certainly be if a 1990s generation loved it, why wouldn't a 20-teens generation love it? Especially since the Pinky and the Brain piece of it is so relationship based. It's not based on timely humor. It's based on the dynamic between these two characters. So that plays no matter what. To an odd couple who really do love each other, even if they are annoyed with each other. That was always the fun.
What's the craziest thing that's ever happened when you were not recording, but you guys were all just sitting around in the booth, or what's the funniest thing, or whatever? Like, just some of your out of recording, but in the recording booth experiences. Anything great? Because I've heard that that is the show, as Rob has said.
Well,
So
Feel free to share.
It's got a dirty word in it.
Okay. Shoot.
We have bleeping technology.
And we're good.
It's a moment that came from Tress MacNeille. At one particular time, we were on, I won't say which show, we were all on a show where the executive producer had become extremely religious. So there was to be no, and almost overnight, there was to be no sexual innuendo, and certainly no swearing. And so the executive producer was there, we did the table read, we read through, and then he said, all right, I guess you guys have got it. All right, I'm going to go back to the studio. And we all watched as he left, and then we were quiet as the door closed behind him. And then Tress breaks the silence with, now we can say fuck. In that old lady voice that she's got, that smoker's voice. And I must have laughed for 5 minutes, just the way she hit the word now. It's like the door closed and, now we can say fuck. See, it's cracking you guys up. So that might be my favorite, quickest coming studio story.
That's great.
Behind the scenes.
Yeah, that's great.
Tress MacNeille is unbelievable. Possibly, I think, and I've worked with, so many greats, and I mean, everybody's, really at the top of their profession. But to me, Tress is the pinnacle. Man or woman, doesn't matter. She's the pinnacle of what a voice actor is. She's the best. I got to get as good as Tress. That's just the way I feel.
I don't see her at a lot of cons. You guys need to get her.
We finally got her out to Comic-Con.
She was at Comic-Con?
She was at Comic-Con this past year because Matt Groening asked.
I was there and I didn't know
especially,
that.
Were you at our panel?
I was at the panel for I couldn't make the Futurama panel. I was doing an interview.
Well, we had the full cast and we table read. We showed the first third of the last episode. The finale will be on next week. Then we table read the second act with the full cast there. Everybody was there. Dave Herman, Phil Lamar, Lauren Tom, myself, Tress, and Billy John and Katie. It's the first time we'd all been assembled at Comic-Con.
I hope it's on YouTube.
I don't know. Hopefully it is.
Because I was really sad I missed that because I had a schedule conflict.
Yeah,
so.
it was pretty legendary. So
now you need to get her to New York Comic Con.
well, she did it especially for Matt, only because Matt asked so nicely and needed to be the full cast.
Oh, but that's great.
So it was also our goodbye too. But you know what? At the end, they gave us a standing ovation, and when 5,000 people get on their feet because you've done a good job since 1999. It's kind of touching and moving, and I think for Tress, it showed that people really do care about the work, because she kind of keeps to herself, and I think she's understanding that people do care, people do love the show and her work. Yeah.
I don't want to cut you guys short, but Mr. Lamarche needs to leave.
No, it's okay. Thank you so much for your time.
Did I cover everything
Wonderful.
as much as we could?
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Thank
Well, thanks
you.
very much.